something happening here. But what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. Watch that sound. Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field they call the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and they carrying signs. Mostly say hooray for our side. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Paranoia strikes deep into your life, it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the man come and take you away. You better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. You better stop now. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. You better stop. What's that sound?
Yeah. Well, there's nothing civil about war of any kind. I don't give a shit how you describe it or play it, call it demonstrating and rioting or whatever. Even so, lines have been drawn, and the expression of the differences is the same as what is being protested. How the hell does that work? It don't. Now, all you cherries out there in Gaga land haven't been paying attention. I don't know why you people don't listen to a white man who knows what's going on and knows how to fix it. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. I didn't stutter, and I ain't playing games. Oh, boy. Those who insist on how I am to do and be need to go look in the mirror. I already have. I had long conversations with myself and figured out some things. One of those is that I made a decision. I don't bow to any man, and that's what's going on. Ooh, see him taking knees. We have a nationwide social unrest that media insist are peaceful protests. Horse hockey. If that's true, where did the rioting and looting come from? Come on, y'all, get your shit together. Oh, boy. Some of these people are jokes, and I don't mean the rioters and looters. But I am going to tell you that I don't believe that it would be unconscionable to shoot one of them in the whatevers with a nice big fat rubber bullet. Throw a chair up against a window and get shot. I bet you that would slow things down considerably. So, following that, all the rioting and funingation, I made up a word. Following that, intimidation and extortion allows the illegal takeover of areas. Oh, my. Hello, Seattle. How are you doing? I don't think you're doing so good. Somebody died there, and nobody's doing anything about it because nobody can, because they blocked people who might have been able to save the person's life from getting in. assholes. This is done by the brute force of mobs of those who feel morally justified to do or take whatever they want. My. To hell with all the authority. Let anarchy rule. No morality needed, just large numbers of people. You know, let's go down here and tear up downtown. That ought to really help things out. Does it further your cause? Hell no. Does it do anything for you? No. Oh, I get to let out some of that frustration. I get to vent. Ooh. Kids that used to vent used to get dinked upside the head by the closest adult. Yeah, that's right. These people used to be in charge. I hear that these people now have guidelines of rules to follow. Their own police, borders, walls. Hello. This will be removed. And I will suggest that everybody in there vacate, because it's about to get ugly. All of this hinges on the force required of enforcement. Cops have a long way to go. Now, I have met some of the nicest ones I've ever met in my whole life up here in the woods in West Virginia. And what I'm saying is they go and they see what the problem is. They see to the rectification of it and take care of business. They don't fool around. If you really insist on I got to go to jail or you ain't done squat, well, okay. Let's hook you up and take you down to a cell. And if the cell ain't quite good enough, maybe we can get you a padded room in a nut house. The idea is simple. The greater force wins, and America is set free, or Marxism rules. Oh, nice Godfather deal. Well, guess what? Choose. I ain't going to be nice about none of this. It's all horse shit. The numbers of people screaming for restoration of order is growing. You all might want to pay attention to that. I have posted on our Facebook page the fact that in several small towns in differing places, the people, that's right, the residents, people who live there, found out they were being invaded by Antifa or some other bunch of dinks, cherries that never did anything in their whole life, and they went out and arrested them all. Now, that's Grandma with a shotgun. I wouldn't screw with her. If you take notice, she's pointing that thing in such a manner that she's going to be shooting low. Ooh. At a certain point, social order will be restored by force if need be. Now, very few people get the understanding as to exactly what is going on here. This country has a constitution. Oh, so what? Yeah, well, wipe your butt on something else. Don't do it in my presence. Let's go to the next step of that. In order to remind people what's in the Bible in terms of the manner in which they are to do things, man decided in his ultimate wisdom that people needed to be reminded through the implementation of laws. Well, let's go back to force. The by force if need be, that becomes the critical question of what level of force is to be used and for what reason. Well, here's the deal. We have, as individuals and as residents of certain areas, signed on to certain levels and forms of authority. One of those is the police. And I have ridden with a policeman. Anybody who hasn't, don't have a clue. If you didn't go, you don't know. Well, same deal with this. If you haven't ridden around with a policeman, dealing with the worst-case scenarios at all times, under the worst circumstances, you ain't got a clue as to what the hell is going on. Well, somebody who's mouthy, no big deal. Somebody who decides to take it to the next step, go ahead, but you're liable to go to jail. I watched a video of a guy that had passed out in his car. I don't know, he passed out, he went to sleep. He was sleeping in the drive-thru, and then somebody called up and said, hey, what, you got any idea what to do about this? And the cops come up, and they had a nice little discussion. The guy got out of the car, they were talking and everything. When they went to hook him up, he lost his mind. Now, losing your mind is where you refuse to pay any attention to the ideology of the manner in which to conduct yourself. He ended up, after he took a deadly weapon, now you got less lethal, comes under the category of a deadly weapon. When he grabbed the guy's taser and then ran, that's one thing. They were in hot pursuit. Let's have a foot chase. But when he shot that weapon at a policeman trying to hit him in the head, then, and at that point, the police were justified in shooting him. I don't know that they could have done better than to take his life or not. Don't really know. That part of the video is being held, I'll bet you. So, what level of force is to be used? First, use loudspeakers to inform people to disperse. If you do not disperse, there's a whole bunch of us that are going to come in there to disperse you. If that's ignored, this gets followed by online shielded troops. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. Troops. And you get the shield up, you get your battle gear on. You're pretty impervious to most things. Push it. Now think about it. I don't know if anybody's ever had any training in that. We were trained in crowd control, and believe me, it works and lasts. Okay. This is when everything else has failed. Nobody will listen for any reason to wise counsel, good ideas of, hey, man, all you got to do is go home. We don't have a problem with you. Using gas, rubber bullets, water cannon, and clubs. Basically, the statement is, you will comply. Ooh, yeah, well, in these kinds of situations, the you will comply ain't a request or question. You don't have much choice. Most people have the good sense to say, well, hell, they're serious. Let's get out of here. Most people have the good sense to not want to get their head cracked. Most people don't agree with the idea that, that cop shouldn't have knocked that person down. Really? What was that person doing? Spitting on a cop? That's a felony assault charge. Think about that. Spitting on somebody isn't you might have AIDS, let alone the Corona-19. This restoring of civil behavior and enforcing the rule of law is critical to our freedoms. That includes all of you protesters out there at the top of your lungs. Do you want to be able to protest when something is wrong that needs fixed? I would believe that you might. So, this will include appropriate arrests. The dinks are trying to break the windows, take them to jail. Now, doing this will require a large amount of manpower. I suggest using militia for the manual labor and as backup for the police. Now, a real militia is a group of trained people. They know what's going on. They know the limitations. They're not going to overstep their bounds. They will not violate your constitutional rights, etc. I mean, a long list of shit. But here we go. All the protesters, rioters who believe in overthrowing our government should be deported or exiled. Now, think about going back to Africa, guys. You all bad and everything. Go over there and screw with them lions. I think Whoopi Goldberg did a thing on that. Now, here's the other part, and everybody needs to really pay attention to this because this is within the legal parameters of what I just described. Those in governmental offices, irrespective of the office held, need to be deported or exiled as well. Go ahead and arrest them. Well, ever hear of an oath of office? Have you read one? Did you look it up anywhere? Has anybody done any homework? I kind of doubt it, but there it is. As some know, I hear a load of things from many places. Oh, I get rumors you would not believe. Some of them dripping with different things. A list of detainees and executions from Gitmo was 2 pages of double columns. The names were known to me and many others. I can't validate it, but the person who enlightened me said that they did. I'm willing to just let it run, see what happens. Those people who are on that list and don't show up, that makes you suspicious that maybe that list was valid after all. So, where does this leave the rest of us? Oh, hiding behind a dumpster, going to visit Uncle Uncle Furry Face out in the woods somewhere so you don't have to fool with it. There's a lot of choices here. Then you got this one, and this is something that really is there. Everybody can feel it. They can sense it. The silent majority. Oh yeah, those are the people that don't get involved, don't raise their voice, don't go to protests, etc. The silent majority has managed to stay out of the mess. Well, guess what, silent majority? It's time to get involved. Now, I'll say this again. I've heard of a couple of small towns where agitating nasties decided they were going to come in and take over, and the town rose up. All of we the people, now think about this very carefully, all of we the people went out and snatched them up by the hair of their head. I don't know what the grandmas grabbed, probably an ear. But everybody went out, the whole town, and arrested these turkey butts. No, you're not taking over my town. No, you're not burning down the shops. No, you're not causing problems. And I could just imagine that some of the police were laughing so hard they couldn't get the cuffs out of their own utility belt. These people are talking. Now, this is a silent majority. These people are talking and asking others how can they help. This number is growing in the extreme. There's a whole huge number out there who don't like this. They don't like any part of it. Now, to add to all this, I'm hearing of plans to restore order. And the number is several times the number of demonstrators. Think about that very carefully, 5, 6 to 1. Many of the silent majority have military experience and are battlefield veterans. They know what and how. I wouldn't go taking them on. And believe me, I'm pretty good. Most, and this is most of everybody, want restored order. And that by any means. You got to bust heads. You got to trample people, whatever it takes. Now, there's going to be a real serious problem in all of this. And that is that separating out peaceful protesters, whether they're screaming, jumping up and down, hollering, waving signs or what, doesn't make any difference. The ones that are trying to break windows and go loot things, those are the people that need to have themselves absconded with. Okay, Antifa, how you going to explain to mom and dad? I'm just walking down the street and they snatched me up. And look at him and say, well, you're sure wearing a funny costume for just walking down the street. What's going on with that? This is where you have peaceful protests, and those who try to riot are arrested. That's where they restored order by any means. Okay, the dinks that want to cause the problems, the dinks that attack the ones that attack the cops. A lot of people think, oh, I owe the cop one punch in the mouth. Give me a speeding ticket that about ruined me. Don't speed. For those that don't get it, don't break the law. You won't have problems with the police. If you're trying to be reasonable, and the best way to handle it is to let them do it. Think about it. The politicians who refuse to uphold their oath of office need to be arrested. Yeah, that's right. Governors, mayors, anybody. I don't give it. It doesn't matter to me who the hell it is. These dinglebats not only have violated their oath of office, but they're working directly against the existence of our country, better known as the Constitution. They think that everybody who believes in that is a joke, and you'd be amazed. These arrests, and I got that all marked in red, need to be on the federal level of rioting or insurrection. Combination of things. You foster a riot, and those rioters are looking to tear down the country and do away with things. Put them in the pokey. So, I already stated how to start fixing things. Enforcement is a critical part of this. The idea that a person that does not have to obey curfews and orders to disperse is bogus. Now, I don't say that lightly because I've been involved in some things. I've got introduced to civil rights when I was too young to understand what the hell that was. I didn't know that I was supposed to hate people because of the color of their skin. I just looked to see whether or not they'd be fun to play with, and that mostly got along just fine. This especially applies when rioting, destruction of property, and attacks on police have taken place before. Same place, different place, doesn't matter. You got to respect the law. If there is no law, then it's every man for himself. The fast draw wins and that sort of shit. Fun and games, huh? Make no mistake, our country's existence hangs in the balance. You guys got to really get this one right, okay? This is not a situation where you can ignore this and it'll go away in a few days. That ain't the kind of thing this is. What it is deals with war. We have had civil war declared upon us by all of the protesters. Ooh, yeah, all of you fit into that category. So, Latin, si vis pacem para bellum, meaning if you want peace, you should prepare for war. And we got one going on. America has the choice of the small town that was invaded by Antifa. As I stipulated, the citizens arrested and detained all of them. This is exactly what is needed nationwide. Anybody that disagrees with these people that think they own everything, have the rights to your property or whatever, or to hide your head, okay, well, guess what? We the people, because the cops ain't doing it, it falls to we the people. And it don't matter if somebody orders them to do what they should know better than to do. Doesn't matter. Now, you've heard this a long time ago, been going around since forever. All this is a part of Agenda 21. Now, if you haven't studied it out, I suggest you go look up Agenda 21 and study it out. There's a lot of things in there you need to learn. The people, got that all redlined, quotated, are to incite so much social unrest that the police don't matter. Back off, leave them alone, let them do what they want. Taken to the next level, these people are to wipe out any surviving police. And that's killing prisoners. This will require federal troops to restore order. It is at this point that states' rights are subjugated to federal controls. I'm going to read that again because you guys need to look it up if you don't know it. It is at this point, federal troops coming in, that states' rights are subjugated to federal controls. And this is all a real mother. A lot of people don't know nothing about the Constitution, don't know the structural parameters of our country. In order to join the U.S., each state joined the Confederation and united collectively with the other states. Well, people don't know what words mean, so I'm gonna give you by definition Confederation 1, an act of confederating, a state of being confederated. alliance or league. And then we got federalize. Ooh, yeah, we're going to cover some things to unite in or under a federal system. Number 2, to bring under the jurisdiction of a federal government. Remember what I said? States' right to go bye-bye? Well, in order to become a state, the people in their state governments had to take an oath of compliance to the Constitution of the United States of America. And if you break your state's oath, you're in deeper doo-doo than you think. How about another definition? Patriot, one who loves his or her country and supports its authority and interests. And here we go. That authority comes from both the Constitution and the laws supporting it. It is all of this is backed up by we the people now. Don't forget that. Police are a representative authority that are tasked with enforcement and protection, both at the same time. There's some cops who shouldn't be cops. Even the police say that much. Well, just because you're a policeman doesn't mean anything in some instances and conditions and situations. Go look that up. There's a lovely little saying that the left likes to put on people. No one is above the law. Really? Well, it seems like the protests are above the law of social distancing and masks and all that shit. But when Trump wants to have a rally, ooh, bad guy. Now, no one is above the law. And here's the fun of this. Some go beyond the law. I've seen people stop somebody who was shoplifting and say, let's go put the food back. And the cop's standing right there. Come on, let's go. Put the food back. And then the cop turns around and buys a week's worth of groceries. Think about that very carefully. If that area of beyond does not violate a law, it is allowed. Person didn't go to jail for shoplifting. They got groceries instead. At the point of any person taking a policeman's weapon and attempting to use it against them, they are subject to deadly force. That's legal. That's law. Go look it up. The cop who recently did this is being wrongfully charged by a corrupt prosecutor. That's right. The prosecutor is a friggin' thief. And wrongfully charged? You better believe it. I think he should have shot him in the buttocks. And believe me, when you shoot somebody in the butt, they have a hell of a time trying to run. The leg don't work so well. So, yes, that precedent, okay, has been set many times in many courts. Go look it up. I'm not going to do all your homework for you. And yes, death is a tragedy. However, in many cases, that action is justified by the situation. When the boy turned and fired that weapon at the cop, he didn't realize what he did. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And the exorcism of deadly force ended the man. I don't think that people ought to die, but you have a right to self-defense, period. There are a large number of people who are nonviolent. Bigelow, that silent majority, hasn't got involved yet. So, of this large number, who is willing to be subject when the bad guy has come to your door? What do you do if the mob decides to go on your door? What are you going to do? Get down on your knees and apologize and pray. The insurrectionists in Chaz, Chop, or whatever the hell the name of it is today, are doing this, demanding money and robbing people on the streets. Oh, what the hell does it take for somebody to realize the simple fact? This never should have been allowed, period. Never, ever. Not any of this. That includes the cops that don't know how to act in terms of what they do that is illegal. You got some people out there who think that the left and the right are something on their own. Well, I do a lot of reading. I read probably a dozen magazines a week, visit a shitload of websites and news places and whatever. And one of the people that has come up that I really respect is Stephen Moore. The man has got his stuff together. And here's an article. I read it once before. I'm going to read it again because you need to hear it. Not because you're stupid. Repetition is what teaches. Think about that. The clear differences between the left and the right. The crisis of the coronavirus induced economic lockdown, and now the violent protests in the streets have unleashed a depression-level financial crisis and unprecedented human suffering, especially in inner cities. People don't realize that our unemployment rate is higher than the Great Depression. It peaked around between 27 and 30%. The Great Depression made, on the light side, 25%. So these events have also exposed a Grand Canyon-sized chasm that now separates how the left and the right see America today. And I'm only going to read just little portions of it. The right believes that stay-at-home orders and social distancing requirements are counterproductive and should be repealed safely and immediately. The left believes that those orders must stay in place but should apply to those on the right, not to liberal protesters. How many people in the protest groups were wearing masks? Did you take any note of that? I mean, that was number one. Number two, the right engages in nonviolence. Oh, yeah, you heard it. You heard it correctly. The left shows tacit support for mob violence, as well as individual violence and things of that nature. The left is where most of these problems come from. It doesn't matter if you're left. Maybe you want to consider changing to the right. Number three, the right believes that the best way to revive the economy is to incentivize a dormant workforce to get back on the job. Well, when the excess unemployment stuff stops, we're going to see whether or not somebody pays attention. The left believes that the best way to revive the economy is to pay people more money, not to work, than to work. Duh. Number four, when the right protests against injustice, such as 40 million people losing their jobs due to lockdowns, it is always during the light of day so they can be seen and heard. The left protests in the dark so people can't see what the criminal elements are doing. What are the criminal elements? Well, somebody just kind of tags along and you don't notice them, but they're there, and all of a sudden them and their buddies are running into stores and taking everything they can get their hands on, everything they can carry. Number five, when the right attends rallies, got one going on with Trump tonight, they carry the American flag. When the left protests and riots, that's in parentheses, the only American flags you see are burned. Lord have mercy. The right believes that there are limits to how much governments can spend and borrow to avoid national bankruptcy and financial ruin. The left believes that trillions of dollars of added spending and debt are advisable and benign. They won't do anything to you guys. Number seven, when the right holds rallies, the protesters clean up after themselves. You heard that right. I've seen them sweeping streets and everything else. When the left protests, they ransack and burn their neighborhoods, spray paint obscene graffiti, and leave a mess of litter and trash everywhere for someone else to clean up. Yet the leftists say they are the environmentalists. Oh, really? My. Number eight, the right stands in support of small business people's rights and often asks businesses run by immigrants and other minority owners like hardware stores to open up. Let's get back to making money. The left's rallies lead to looting and burning down the hardware stores. Think about that very carefully. That's basically what happened. The right believes that the best way to get people back to work is by getting the money right to the people's paychecks through a payroll tax cut. The left thinks the best course is to give money to mayors, governors, and other politicians. That, it all fits and figures. Number 10, the right wants to help prevent racism in urban police forces by firing incompetent and bigoted police officers. There's also things, called elevator classes, how to make it go up and down, The left thinks that the best course is to give money to mayors, governors. Well, it also stands by unions, which prevent police from being fired. Well, no, they can't, not really, like it or not. The right, number 11, the right wants to make America look like Florida and Texas. The left wants the rest of the nation to look like New York and Illinois, which are crumbling from rioting, lockdowns, high taxes, and an accelerated stampede of businesses out of harm's way. These are the monumentally important choices facing America. This is what the 2020 elections are all about. Think about that carefully. That is from the Washington Examiner, June 9th, 2020. Go look it up and get your own copy. The week, June 19th. Oh, my God, it expired yesterday. Doesn't smell bad, though. It just looks funny. Editor's letter, 1955. 14-year-old Emmett Till was visiting family in Mississippi when he was kidnapped by a group of white men accused him of murdering a white woman. They beat him bloody. Guys out his eyes, shot him in the head, and mutilated his body and dumped it in the Tallahatchie River. Oh, wonderful people. Forced America to see for the first time what American racism actually looks like. It's an end result, but it's the same sort of thing, and it don't matter about which side, which color, who did what to who. That image and the shame and disgust it evoked launched the Civil Rights era. In 1955 now, years of sit-ins, protests, and confrontations with police finally toppled Jim Crow segregation and culminated in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. A reckoning, boy. Gandhi taught shame and moral revulsion can be powerful weapons against oppression. True. A near insurrection broke out among current and retired generals after Trump sought to bring in active duty troops to dominate the protesters. And this boy puts in there a la Tiananmen Square. Oh, my. Well, guess what, Mr. Falk? You need to do your due diligence. Trump's never told anybody in a tank to run over anybody, but the Tiananmen Square, they ran over them, especially if they were injured and couldn't get away. They opened up with machine guns and automatic weapons fire and wiped out a bunch of them. In the square, tanks ran over students who were wounded or alive. Run into somebody with a tank and it knocks them down generally. Well, they got knocked down all right. Police violence sparks demand for reform. And I put a little red arrow and said, get what you give. Real simple. Violence for violence, tit for tat. Then you got police violence sparks demand for reform. And rioters and looters. What happened? Scenes of police across the nation assaulting peaceful protesters. No, Hundreds of videos depicted police in cities across the country beating protesters with batons, throwing them to the pavement, firing tear gas and rubber bullets into nonviolent crowds and assaulting reporters. Yeah, well, when people are told to disperse, and the people that are saying this have the legal authority to evoke such an action, I would suggest that you don't want to put up with that. You might want to consider going home. Even friends of mine who are different races are saying, oh, I see it now. Oh, my. Promises of reform, the Minneapolis City Council pledged to dismantle the city's police department and rethink the city's approach to public safety. Well, there's a way to get around that, but I don't think you people have the guts to do it. House Democrats unveiled expansive legislation that would create a national use of force standard, ban chokeholds, and create a national registry to track police misconduct. Bad guys need to be in a database somewhere. At a false claim, a reporter, by a reporter who works for Sputnik. So what the columnist said, demilitarizing the police is a must. War zones. The a Humvee's for a war zone, not for American streets. Want to bet? And they need to end qualified immunity. I agree with that part. Definitely agree with that. I don't agree with demilitarizing the police. If you've got a limited number of people, then you're going to have a limited capability to respond. Just that simple. Therefore, running a horse into a crowd or a Humvee or whatever fits what's going on. The legal doctrine, which grants police broad immunity from civil liability for their actions, has provided a shield for too many abusive officers. I agree. It needs to be a case-on-case basis of what happened. Oh, yeah. And guess what? If you turn your body camera off, then you're guilty. Oh, boy. I mean, you can have a lot of fun with some of these. Don't let bad events trigger a rush to bad policies. That's Wall Street Journal. Reforms are needed, reducing the power of unions, which protect road officers, but a political drive to defund police risks the return to the high crime era of the 60s and 70s that damaged so many American cities. Crime is already surging this year in many cities, aided by liberal law enforcement policies. Oh, yeah. Does that include turning crooks loose that have been arrested for nasty things such as murder or whatever? Think about it. Scenes of indiscriminate violence against protesters exercising their First Amendment rights represent an attack on civil society. Well, yes, but who was attacking the civil society before the cops showed up? Ooh, the protesters. Faced with burning national anger over their own misconduct, police have responded with an assertion of power and impunity, effectively saying, so what? Well, change that. Make it retroactive to cover the whole, all the way into the middle of last year. Police call on to respond to drug overdoses and crisis of mentally ill, rouse the homeless, resolve families to deal with migrant other social problems. All defunding means is handing the responsibilities off. Oh, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. I ain't afraid of no ghost. Well, guess what? Pull police back, and it's people of color who will suffer the most. Real simple. Between 1993 and 2005, aggressive and expanded policing dropped the number of black victims of violent crime by nearly 2/3. I'm getting this out in the open so that people can chew on it. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, from 2015 to 2019, the number of unarmed black civilians killed by cops dropped from 38 to 9. Now think about that. Yes, there's bad cops. Most are really good guys, and so reforms that target bad apples are missing the point. This is Slate.com. My. The deeper problem is the Daily. Now, this person has really got a screw loose. The deeper problem is the Daily largely invisible violence of cops stopping and arresting black men and women over expired licenses, traffic violations, locking them up for minor drug possession, and imposing overly harsh sentences that, now the cops don't impose the sentence, that marks millions with a criminal record that closes off opportunities for employment, health care, and housing. Very little of this contributes to public safety. Well, okay. In America, this systemic destruction is what good cops do. Horse hockey. You people are full of sheep dip, if you believe that one. And yeah, there you go. Protests for racial justice gain strength across the U.S. Well, first of all, it's not racial justice, and the justice they're looking at is Marxist. Well, demonstrators marched in at least 1,280 towns and cities across the U.S. And now peaceful affairs. D.C. Mayor had something to say about that. Trump took a pot shot at Bowser. Bowser was grossly incompetent and in no way qualified to be running an important city. If you're not going to do the job, get out of there. Resign. Make up whatever excuse you want, but get out of the way. I mean, if you ain't part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Trump is failing to convince people that he can provide calm and steady leadership during its troubled times. Only after the failures of locals, to a certain extent, and this is a percentage and whatever numbers, is it more plausible and more likely that President Trump will initiate insurrection. And if he does, you people are fried. Oh. You don't make changes by meaning. You don't get meaningful reform. When it comes, will be produced not by rage and destruction, but by a peaceful yet persistent demand for lasting change that calls to us. Yeah, I agree. Easy for white Americans, here we go with the racism, to dismiss the claims of African Americans that police brutality and pervasive white racism justified their protests. Well, in some cases, yeah. And that says protest. It don't say riot. Monmouth University poll, 76% of, what the hell? 76% of Americans, including 71% of white people, call racism and discrimination a big problem in the U.S. People recognize it. 57% of Americans said protesters' anger was fully justified. Not the destruction, the anger. 21% called it somewhat justified. In the 60s, large cities and college campuses, this movement spread to small-town America and even some places with deeply conservative politics. Oh, my goodness. America's angry and hungry for change, and that could have big consequences for the election and future policy. Well, President Trump, I'd say you need to do a number on things, especially if the states and localities won't. Oh, the generals revolt. None. Is the military turning on Trump? No. Ripped his former boss. Angry and appalled. Used the National Guard to forcefully clear peaceful protesters from the street in front of the White House so he could that needs to quit. Turn the sound off or something. Hold on. I'm gonna play a song. Now, people do not change their stripes easily. Think about that very carefully. A lot of these people get transferred. City controlling councils transfer people all around the country. And they do so because of what they did or did not do. And, think about can't change your stripes or who you are. And these people move them around, and they're still funkies and flunkies. Generals revolt, they just said that, very simply, and one dummy, and this guy owes the president an apology, and that's Joint Chiefs General Martin Milley. The boy stepped in it big time, right up to his eyeballs. Issued a memo to all armed services reminding them that their ultimate loyalty is to the Constitution, which gives Americans the right to freedom of speech and peaceful assembly. Peaceful assembly. Now, under the Constitution, the military answers to a civilian commander-in-chief. That's why these retired generals should not be involving themselves in politics or policy. It's not your place. Now, you got an opinion, fine, you expressed it. Deploying U.S. troops on American soil in times of great civil unrest. Ooh, that brings up a specter. There's something more than a little unnerving about military leaders publicly challenging an elected president. Yeah, it does. It raises the specter of a military coup. Ooh. Shows just how close to the abyss we are. No, it doesn't. The demonstrators are doing a fine job of that. I mean, it don't quit. Coronavirus cover-up in Brazil. Arctic oil spill. Russia's going nuts trying to catch up with a humongous amount of diesel. They're looking at 150,000 barrels. Ooh. And then Tehran is actually getting upset about women's rights. Honor-killing outrage. Yeah. There are a whole bunch of people in that country who disagree with that horse hockey. And it should be disagreed with. Whoa. The origins of Antifa. That's Marxism. Plain, simple, and straight up. So, and then this dummy, whoever put this together stepped in it, again, up to their eyeballs. Then they got, adds a bunch of shit. A mission is using direct action up to and including violence to fight fascism on the alt-right. They believe that law enforcement is complicit in white supremacy. Well, you can believe whatever you want, but there's one big glaring lie. That's right, you heard me, lie in this article. Has Antifa been violent in the past? Always. What about Barr's allegations? Correct. Many looters, police said, were professional criminals. Oh boy, Trump and Barr focused on Antifa. Critics have accused Trump and Barr of focusing on Antifa as an excuse to invoke the Insurrection Act, call out the military and put U.S. soldiers in the streets of American cities. Tom Cotton says, called for a show of force. Well, I'm not in disagreement. Why? Because they indiscriminately take out places that are minority-owned, among other things. And anyway, about midway in this article, what happened in Charlottesville? Well, I'm going to tell you, part of it is a big friggin' lie. One neo-Nazi was convicted of homicide when he rammed his car into a crowd, killing protester Heather Hare, 32. Now, there's a problem with that. The person involved, and you better start doing due diligence, was an Antifa member. We would have been crushed like cockroaches were not before the anarchists and anti-fascists, said activist and Harvard professor Cornel West. Well, this dude is an overeducated idiot. Witnesses, they saw both black-clad militant activists who could be Antifa and white supremacist agitators breaking windows and starting fires. Records show that the vast majority of those arrested were from local communities. Yeah. They probably turned people loose that were from out of town. Many looters were professional criminals. So, is Antifa on social media? Ooh. Twitter and Facebook took down hundreds of spammy accounts. Many reporting to be Antifa and calling for violence against police or white neighborhoods. Yeah, well, finally you're going to have community standards. My. About time. So anyway, it don't stop. Now, here's something that is an interesting subject for everybody to ponder. Bragg and Lee do not deserve veneration. We got to rename those Army bases. Really? Bragg and other soldiers took up arms against their own country for the right to enslave others. Question mark. Defenders of Confederate memorials claim they should not erase history, and that famed Americans like Thomas Jefferson, Woodrow Wilson also had deeply troubling racial views. Confederate officers went much further and committed treason to defend racism. We do not live in a country in which Bragg or other Confederate officers can serve as an inspiration. Bullshit. The hell you can't. Hey, Petraeus, how about you do your friggin' homework? What does it take? What is the best thing that gets things done in the best of training? Doesn't matter whether it's military, police, or college campuses. It's simple. Teaching is relative to who is teaching and the subject matter involved. What the hell are you taking these statues down for when you can take your kids there and teach them about these dinks? Oh, why are they honoring this? Well, because they probably were a part of the opposite side. If Hong Kong fails, Taiwan is next. That's true. So, I mean, we got all manner of crap going on all over the place. Oh, boy. Europe, reckoning with racism past and present. What are you doing complaining about George Floyd? Hey, you're clear across the whole friggin' ocean from George Floyd. You might want to, are you using it for an excuse? Coward British authorities are letting the protesters riot. Sound familiar? Vandalism and thuggery should be punished, not justified. I mean, police had to break up a Stockholm protest because it breached the 50-person limit on public gatherings. Oh, there's a nice excuse. Obnoxious of the British demonstrators to carry signs reading "I can't breathe" when their very presence risks spreading a disease that threatens the breath of vulnerable people such as the elderly and ill. Stand up for African Americans, sure. Just don't risk Swedish lives to do so. That's called no skin in the game. That's called fair weather soldiers. How they see us. No longer a bastion of press freedom. Hey, I'm going to woke you up. Set the alarm off. Press freedom never was. And I don't say that lightly. You go look it up. What have they been saying about what? How many lies have they been telling? Order the crowds cleared from Lafayette Square. U.S. Park Police did it. And these guys went after these people. One officer smacked Myers in the gut with a riot shield and then punched him in the face. Another officer lunged at Brace with a nightstick. As they headed for safety, the two were hit by rubber bullets. Police clearly knew they were journalists. Myers had a TV camera on his shoulder, but attacked anyway. Oh. Well, maybe you guys were playing the enemy of the state from a press point of view and trying to hide it. The U.S. has long held itself as a beacon of press freedom. What kind of press freedom? To cause more problems? The press. Trump calls the press the enemy of the people, and he's right. Inciting social division and violence by spreading fake news? No, Trump ain't doing that. But the left is. Hello, threats of violence from Bolsonaro supporters. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, a former journalist, has banned critical reporters from press conferences and lambasted the BBC. Well, BBC is a sister of CNN. What do you expect? Once a society starts normalizing attacks on journalism, it's on a slippery slope to ruin. Maybe if somebody was really serious, we get something done. The press has become a target because normal political process is broken down, and the media has taken on the role of the almost semi-official opposition. Really? A society at war with journalism is at war with itself. Well, I suggest maybe you ought to consider pulling a broadcast license or two and getting their attention. Hello, Dink. Can't do that. Sorry. Protests. The protests justifying a coronavirus threat. Oh, really? America spent the last couple of months being hectored by public health experts about the danger of gathering in public places. But now many of them say it's glorious and essential for thousands of protesters to gather en masse in the streets for a great awakening about police and systemic racism. And that basically says primarily that, guess what? There ain't any virus where if you're righteous in what you're doing, politically correct, and all that, we have a huge spike in cases because of these protests. They will say, well, it was worth it to end racism. Well, the health officials owe us an apology. Officials passed onerous lockdowns on the basis of dire warning that constitutional rights were trampled and worshipers were barred from convening in churches. Family members are forced to mourn their casketed relative on an iPad. Businesses were deprived of livelihood. But now, if gatherings are held in the name of racial injustice, the coronavirus guidelines can be thrown out. Really? Apparently, the virus does discriminate. And you think the police are bad? What about these health agencies? Well, COVID-19, when the illness doesn't go away. How about this? Everybody in the freedom-loving world needs to get a hold of some tonic water. Why? It's got organic, natural antigen properties that the pills don't, without the side effects. And it erases not just the virus, but the symptoms. That's a medical report from a person I know who don't put up with the horse hockey everybody else is. Rebellion at the Times. What's fit to print? Oh, my. Journalists, New York Times last week, for journalists to reconsider deep questions about what can count as permissible opinion. Oh, send in the troops. Tom Cotton, send in the troops, Cotton called for an overwhelming show of force from military forces to crush nihilists, protesters who he said were simply out for loot and the thrill of destruction. Oh my goodness! The op-ed put black staffers in danger. Really? Well, the editorial page editor resigned. The Times decided Cotton's inflammatory demand for troops on the streets was the equivalent of shouting "fire" in a crowded theater. What a crock of shit! Systemic racism, is it real? Answer is no. Why? Well, because over the years things have changed. It ain't the same place or conditions. Communications protesters turned to new tech tools. They're old tech tools. False rumors about Antifa organizing bus rides to take prisoners into white neighborhoods spread on the neighborhood watch app next door, as well as on the home security app Ring, sparking fearful comments among rural and suburban communities. Yeah, well, I don't want to get their brains all over the carpet, but I am armed if that's, if that's what they're going to, the game they're going to play. Oh, boy. Now, they got cartoons in the week, June 19th, 2020, and several of them are sort of half-assed. But there's one that really hits home. You got two people, one guy, the guy with his hands up, the wife or girlfriend or whomever handing over a purse. A dude with a gun on the opposite side says, "It's like teamwork. You defund the police, and I defund you." Oh, boy. You want to start some shit, that'd do it. It would be it would be really nice to find that it is not possible to escape the horse hockey that these people have played games with. Geopolitics. HSBC sides with China. Now, side with China over Hong Kong's future. Well, I say boycott HSBC. At least 3.3 million small businesses, 22% of all firms in the U.S., shut their doors between February and April. For comparison, 730,000 businesses closed between the start and end of the Great Recession. Oh, colleges in the U.S. earn roughly $600 billion per year, equivalent to the combined annual revenue of tech firms Google, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Netflix, and Twitter combined. Now that oil's come up a little bit, shale wells restart production. They think they can make it go. Federal Reserve expect years of near zero rates. I mean, recession. This ain't a recession, it's a depression, dummies. You need to get a thesaurus. A big setback for women in the workforce. Women have been bearing the brunt of the pandemic's economic impact. The reality is that throughout the crisis, women have been losing jobs at higher rates than men. Well, it doesn't say how much higher. Great proportion of hourly workers that don't have paid sick leave. Two-earner couples, women are more likely to leave their jobs to handle child care. Many are being forced to scale back their career ambitions, leave the workforce, or sacrifice their sleep and mental health. The way this recession is affected, well, I had to write depression in there. 55% of jobs lost in April and had been held by women. We have capital firms, venture capital firms, take step to back black founders. Oh, goody. Jobs. Hit a recovery or blip on the data. Well, what jobs? First. Second, blip in the data? Horse hockey. Government economists believe that most of those responded are effectively unemployed. 16.7% in May and an awful 19.7% in April. Whichever numbers you the headline jobless rate doesn't tell the whole story, whole unemployment story. Absent from work, probably on layoff, working part-time for economic reasons, or can't work because of fears about getting sick or responsibilities like caring for children. And the share of U.S. adults out of work jumps to, get this in print, 27%. And while the jobless rate fell overall, it worsened for black Americans. My. This is the week, June 19th. They put it in print. A reckoning for Texas liberal bastion. Austin has long imagined itself as a progressive oasis, according to the Washington Post, but the police's violence response to protests have shown white residents a different view of the city. Some under orders, and some it doesn't matter. These people are going to do what they want anyway. No matter if they're cops or who they are. Oh, here we go. National Review for June 22nd. Oh, my goodness, this one's on time. I love it. We worked to make China a global power for more than 40 years under both the Republican and Democrat presidents. It was a mistake. Well, guess what? Disengagement is in a process, and it's no longer something that can be easily ignored. But what you have to understand is this. Doesn't matter if it's civil or what it is, isn't much of anything good about war. So, you need to understand not only that, but whether or not you're in a reality, or maybe this place. Funsy onesie. Well, it's the idea of the bullet hitting the bone that is the point. What bones do you got that's going on? Well, had a thing in National Review, and this is June 22nd issue. Shop local at corner grocery stores. I've never raised a provider of our basic here in Camden, Maryland. We have Simmons Center Market, a small grocery store with an excellent butcher counter and all the necessities to weather the pandemic. After finding nothing but chicken feet, literally at the meat counter of our local supermarket, I went to Simmons with a hope and a prayer. There I found packaged of every other part of the chicken, plus beef, pork, eggs, and freshly made sausage. Couldn't stand it, so I had to ask. The person had to ask. I asked the proprietor how they managed to stock what Food Line could not. She smiled and said, "If we run out, we don't wait for the next delivery. We drive to our local farmers and get more." Now think about that. It's called self-sufficiency. This is one of the things done in hillbilly areas. My. Oh, boy. The Boston Tea Party. One of the little hot air speech balloons released during the George Floyd riots compares them to the Boston Tea Party. Prudence dictates that revolutions should not happen for reasons that are light or passing. When the government shows a design to crush them under absolute despotism, they should throw it off, forming a new one that will serve their happiness and security. If you think that is what is going on in smashing windows, cleaning out stores, burning cop cars in random buildings, and mugging passersby who disagree with you, you do not understand the patriots you claim to emulate. Think about that one real close. And by the way, just so everybody will know, shouldn't ignore the possibility of a second wave of the COVID-19. Well, guess what? COVID-19 is a hoax. Go look it up on Facebook. Torrent Education Restoration of Basic Due Process to the federal Title IX rules passed its first test in court. Unanimously held that if a private university vows in its contract that students accused of sexual misconduct will receive fair and equitable treatment, it must be at the very least hold a real, live, and adversarial hearing and provide the opportunity for the accused student or his or her representative to cross-examine witnesses, including his or her accusers. Court accepted that there are some questions that are uniquely the province of the university, but rejected the idea that the investigation and fair adjudication of alleged criminal activity like sexual assault is among them. Devos announced the implementation of her changes. The Democratic Party has treated the move as a radical departure from American norms. As the Third Circuit showed, the truth is quite the opposite. See, things are beginning to happen. And here's a biggie. First, restore order. Doing evil in the service of a just cause does not change either side of the moral equation. Evil remains evil, and the just cause remains just. Neither consideration cancels out the other or transmutes it. Protests are a normal and healthy part of democracy. Looting and arson are not. Now, here we go. Vexing here is that the looting and arson have taken place while the gears of justice have been turning. The police officers in question were dismissed, and the principal malefactor charged with third-degree murder. Well, that was inappropriate in some ways, and it depends on which one of those, because the riots have only layered another injustice on top of the one done to George Floyd. Police officers have been killed or assaulted. Looters and protesters killed or injured, and much property destroyed, including the property of many black-owned businesses at the heart of the very communities whose interests the protesters purport to represent. Trump has talked of dominating the streets, an inflammatory way to put a basic and important point. In such a situation, restoration of order has to be the first priority. Violence must be met with overwhelming and obviously lawful force. Remember, I mentioned the two forces, okay? The greater one wins. I wouldn't take on the United States military. Antifa extremists are taking a hand. Oh, boy. There are plenty of others who have been breaking things, looting, who clearly are local residents and not members of an ideological splinter group. State and municipal authorities must resolve to keep the peace with the assistance of the National Guard as warranted. There's your troops on the street. And it keeps going. There is no fix for Trump's bad tweets. So, Trump has talked about the invoking the Insurrection Act to call out federal troops. Something that he has the authority to do in theory. No, in legality, but would be impractical without the cooperation of the state and local officials that he's unlikely to get. Well, maybe you need to go visit their offices and take them away. Rioting again, Boston. Primary issue in Minneapolis is not jobs or the police or housing or anything like this. It's pointless. 68, the riots after the assassination of Martin Luther King. 68 riots followed the summertime riots of 67. Woo. Which saw 43 dead, more than 1,000 injured in Detroit, and 26 dead in Newark, and slightly less dramatic violence in Atlanta, Birmingham, Boston, Buffalo, Chicago, Cincinnati, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, New Britain, New York City, Plainfield, Rochester, and Toledo. 159 race riots in all. There were more riots in 69 and on into the 70s. The 66 Omaha riots were part of an anti-Jewish program in which Jewish landlords were blamed for poor housing conditions, and the Jewish-owned businesses were firebombed. Imagine that. White flight and rapidly changing social composition of urban cores, low black employment and wages, high rates of black incarceration, worsening unemployment. Very few of those who called those called Negro in this area can become mature without being arrested for something. Anti-poverty organizer Eugene Purnell was on the governance committee, and in 65, witnesses to the Watts riots hearings, free school lunches and government health care programs, along with job training, educational programs, investments in urban redevelopment. That's nice. What are you going to do about the racism? Cities are being neglected because of white flight. The people that earn the majority of the money, or more money, or higher wages, are going. In 1950, there were about 1.5 million whites in Detroit. By 2010, the number had declined to about 75,000. In the early 30s, the great majority, about 70% of the Jews in Minneapolis, lived in a handful of neighborhoods on the north side. That number has fallen below 40%. White people blamed for Plymouth rioting? Really? It wasn't only whites moving to the suburbs. The median family income of black households in Detroit tanked in the 70s, not because of the sudden uptick in unemployment, but because much of the black middle class left the city as fast as it could. Everybody who had the means left. I've talked about the Great Exodus, the riots, of course, hastened the departure of both black and white residents. Bronx lost more than a third of its population in the 70s. Gardner reported that 100,000 African Americans left Chicago for the suburbs during the same period. More than 100,000 in Atlanta, 224,000 in Washington. Chicago's largely black Woodlawn neighborhood went from 80,000 residents in 60 and 800 commercial establishments in 50 to 24,000 residents and about 100 commercial establishments in 1990. Cities with major riots Median black income fell by about 9%. That's from 60 to 70. It's a decade, 10 years, when compared with the income of black families in similar cities that did not have riots. 1960, 1980, about 7 percentage points. Male employment fell about 7 percentage points in the cities that had riots, and the median value of black-owned homes dropped by as much as 20%. Many of Detroit's problems from the 70s forward were related to the city's inability to collect sufficient tax revenue, difficult to do when there are few businesses and properties values are in a crater. Civil rights leaders bemoaned all this. I mean, reducing Minneapolis to a smoking gun is not going to improve the life of a single black family. And if it makes some college kids feel better, why we need Section 230? No, you don't. And post it. Platforms. Agree to the contents or delete the post. That's part of the community standards then. It places potential liability for social media speech where it belongs, on the speaker. Try the First Amendment. You say whatever you want. Well, it needs amended at the very least, if not repealed completely. It says it'll weaken the internet and destroy social order and all kinds of happy shit. Well, the law protects National Review and the New Republic in precisely the same way as it protects Twitter and Facebook, and indeed in the way that it has to protect them in order to comply with the content neutrality obligations imposed by the First Amendment, which is not followed. So, you can look at this in a bunch of different ways, but repeal Section 230 and thereby to render Twitter, Facebook, and every other website that permits third-party comments liable for their users' defamatory speech. What's next? Oh, more. Nervous about speech that appeared insightful or libelous. Moreover, it would now have a slam dunk excuse for intervening in almost every conversation conducted on its site. Twitter declined to remove President Trump for his tweets, accusing Joe Scarborough of murder on the basis that it would not want to set such a precedent. Conservatives have correctly observed the Silicon Valley is dominated by progressives who share neither their values nor their assumptions. Populist right drive to repeal Section 230 is suicidal. No, it ain't. 30 years ago, conservatives had one mass media outlet, talk radio, and the left did its level best to reimpose a fairness doctrine that would have killed it stone dead. Is that the settlement to which we're hoping to come to? No. You guys are going to have to abide by the First Amendment. And you have a choice as to what you allow to be on your websites. What masks mean? Mind your own business. He's not wearing a mask. He should be removed from the stores. It is my business, she shouted back. The maskless man had the final word, and it was chilling. Lady, if you don't shut up, you're going to wish all I did was cough on you. Now that, pretty much says it all. Cancel culture. Ooh, tribal TV. They're can't have a show like Cops. It shows the nasty part of being human and being in the United States at the same time. There are things that people can do and should not do. Somebody's trying to call me. How are you? Doot, 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 doot. Oh, beepity beep beep to you too. I've got a lot of comments on Facebook. I might have to get to those here in a minute. All right, prep school, Happy Warrior. Until very recently, seen as a fringe activity or either bored weirdos who dwell in desert RVs or rich weirdos who live in Silicon Valley. This is the people that, these are the preppies. Got rules. Fight Club. You do not talk about prepping. Well, it's pretty simple. If you share your prepping secret of the world, after all, sooner or later, the you know what will hit the fan, and all sorts of unprepared friends and acquaintances, even frenemies who are making fun of you just the week before, will sidle up with wide, innocent Bambi eyes and ask to borrow just a few of your Clorox wipes, just one segment of your last toilet paper roll, or just 5 or 6 of your guns. If you're here with us in 2020 and you're paying attention, and you're not prepping, you're the weird one now. Oh boy, for preppers, it's been a bit of a vindication for years. One of the most smirked at species in the technology ecosystem was the Silicon Valley prepper. But now, the coders and founders, long snickered at for stockpiling flour and toilet paper, were absolutely right. Prepping, in other words, has gone mainstream. What happens is they develop a wilderness lifestyle with the assumption they will be in it long haul, learning to live off the land, growing your own food, things of that nature. So you have to really understand not only what's going on, but where it goes. Now, I got just a little more to cover, and I'm done with it. And I'm only going to read one. The Washington Examiner, June 16th. I got several things marked in here. Our young masters, this is the cover. It's got people screaming in Uncle Sam's ear from both sides. The woke mob versus America's founding ideals. Protesters must back reform rather than defunding the police. Now, I'm going to see if I can get a copy of this. Official defunding police waiver. I'm going to see if I can get that. Just 16% support cutting police funding for police departments, let alone outright dismantling them. 16%. So, open speech is the fault line in American society. No, it isn't. It's the lack thereof. So, Hugo Gordon, by the way, oh, yeah, cancellations will continue until morale improves. Oh, my goodness. Gone with the Wind was temporarily canceled. They put it back up. Yeah, that's right. Now, for all you people tearing down different things of Civil War history, screw off. That's memorializing the Civil War. Ooh, are being taken down everywhere. Kentucky, Maryland, campuses in Memorial Hall, which portrays the history of Kentucky and includes paintings of African slaves. That's coming down. Alabama, Birmingham, Alexandria, Louisville, Mobile, Alabama. It just goes on and on and on. Then we got social distancing coup, and that worked. That was the riots. Enough was enough, and they said screw off. What we got here is a failure to realize the whole reason police abuse of citizens is such a betrayal and an outrage over and above ordinary violence is because somebody needs to do the job we pay and outfit and empower the police to do. That is why their job title, too, derives from polis. When they instead act like a criminal gang or when we disband them, it leaves the public without a crucial thing. Ooh. Defund the police, never radicalized. Dangerous ideas must be engaged and defeated before they get popular. How about the riots and looting? There's no interdiction on any of that. Y'all didn't do your job at all. And no, I don't give a shit if the mayor or the governor says says so, and tell them to screw off. What good has remaining silent done? And why should the left's efforts to transform policing by any different time around? Why should it be any different? Ooh, perfect storm. America's official botched COVID, which is a hoax, response could bring on a nightmarish vaccination crisis. Well, because vaccinations ain't safe for starters, and the anti-vaccine crowd is running loose, full steam ahead. Young Turks at the gate. Woke campus culture is destroying America's institutions. Well, the worst is yet to come. You mean wiping out the Turks? You sort of didn't use definitivism in that. Challenge remains. We are going to defend our founding virtues of Republican civility, the free exchange of ideas and liberal tolerance. If we're going to avoid falling off the precipice, our institutions must start to fight back against those who would destroy them. Sympathy for the cops. Yeah, I got sympathy for the cops. Somebody is taking a giant shit in their parade, and they're not doing it in a nice way at all, to include their bosses or anybody else that, any legislator will have to overcome the customary partisan bickering to get something done. Atlas shrugged and God wept, and mercy, sweet sakes. Bedard, Trump's regulatory impulses threaten victories over the swamp because they've not been made law. That's where you gotta get in there and fight. Oh boy, business, the national debt, $25 trillion. Tax increases and entitlement reform required to address the debt. Everyone will have to pay more, not just the wealthy. Oh, think about it. That doesn't mean they're going to cut. That doesn't mean they're going to cut you off. And don't break up big tech. Now, Mr. Moore, I have a lot of respect for you, but in this case, these people need to be tied up in a regulatory knot. And I can think of the perfect thing to be tied up. And here is the editor-in-chief, Gurdon. Woke up and drank the Kool-Aid. Daniel Patrick Moynihan got it backward when he said everyone is entitled to his own opinion, but not his own facts. We've labored under a delusion that it's vital to protect reporting from encroachments by ideologies, whether of owners, senior editors, or individual writers. First duty was, we thought, to inform readers and tell them what was really going on, and only secondarily to persuade them to a particular point of view. It's no longer the case. You'll love this. New York Times, a fiasco at the New York Times over an op-ed by Senator Tom Cotton made that clear that it's news that threatens opinion, not the other way around. Well, righteously inflamed. The newsroom was righteously inflamed by urban protests against the police, revolted after its bosses allowed Cotton to advocate the forceful restoration of order on vandals and marauders. Young staff went for the juggler and claiming that given a platform to an opinion that happens to be shared by 58% of the public, endangered black employees. So I got rid of them. Senior management groveled. Remember them people taking a knee? So everyone is not entitled to their own opinion. I'll read that again. This is in print. June 16, 2020, Washington Examiner. Hugo Gurdon. So everyone is not entitled to their own opinion. The only ones that may be printed are those approved by news reporters whose job is ostensibly to collect facts. Toe the line or you'll be canceled. fired, gotten rid of. The country traditionally view the contrary traditional view has been under threat for a long time. Our alien culture has, sadly, moved a lot further in the wrong direction since then. We live in a radically intolerant epoch in which a wide range of subjects, only certain prescribed views may be expressed without inviting punishment. Most sensitive subjects are related to race, class, or gender. The ideological sledgehammer is used by acolytes of Marxist philosopher Antonio Gramsci to smash Western civilization. Their cardinal obsessions have spread like stains and now cover just about everything the woke avant-garde says they do. You may adopt their views voluntarily or under compulsion, but adopt them you must. Otherwise, you're a racist or you're an aphobe of some sort. It's chilling to see people forced to accept what they know is rubbish. Watch them willingly embrace fraudulent ideologies and wallowing in their own humiliation is almost worse. Creepy scenes are playing out across America of people dropping to their knees in ritual submission to confess their complicity in systematic racism. It's like the sheep in the animal farm falsely accusing themselves of peeing in the water trough. Kneeling, hands up in surrender. The sentiments are fine, but the manner of their inculcation is appalling. Hugo, you're going to need to adjust your language a little bit. It's right, and it's righteous, but it was the religious incantation of a new cult. Yes, the worshippers drank the Kool-Aid of their very own volition, but those who don't will have the poison poured down their throats willy-nilly. In the land of the free, it's time for America to reject the pursuit of doctrinal uniformity. Time to defy the Minneapolis mob chanting shame at Mayor Jacob Frey because he wouldn't submit to one final grovel and agree to eliminate the police force. There is no appeasing or avoiding today's militants. You may not be interested, but they're interested in you, and they're coming after your country. It's past time for good, decent people to reject their corrosive new catechism and fight back. This is meant not to be only the land of the free, remember, but also the home of the brave. And then I got a new nation today, and you talk about racist, nasty, Marxist horseshit. The outrage must not end. Well, you people that want to play that game, guess what? You can be ended. Think about that very carefully. People have been taking the bad guys to task and doing a good job of it, in my opinion. Oh, boy. God, love it. It's a bummer trying to shuffle all this stuff around. How about we go to Facebook and answer some questions if people got them? I don't want to turning the state back into a republic, which is mandated in our Constitution, putting Gov back in its place. Pray for them. Oh, my. That's on Tuesday, the 23rd. Love it. Keep hearing about a fake alien invasion. True or not? Yeah, it's fake. Guaranteed. It's a whole bunch of horse hockey. Do. What an exciting day. It's a little break. Trump will give 2 speeches. Now, he's got a rally, and bad guys have said they're going to be there in force. Civil war when there will be nothing civil about it. Well, you tell me, Johnny. I've got no clue. I guess because it's civilian-based. That could be the problem. Kennedy family help write work on the plan? No. They were a part of it, but they were not. The plan is primarily military. Seattle is disgusting. Any idea how it would come to an end? Yeah, they're going to go in there, enforce, and clean it out. New York, California, the governors are a species unto themselves. As these so-called people, are these so-called people human? That's a good question. They might be clones or some kind of other thing. I heard about a law-abiding citizens who armed themselves and defended their neighborhoods, towns against Antifa and rioters. Yes, I have heard there's a ton of them out there. The little towns are self-sufficient. They need to maintain order. President Trump bringing force into Seattle legally without the mayor, governor asking for help? Yes. Once the Insurrection Act is initiated, the lesser powers don't have anything to say about it. Washington State Governor Mayor, yeah. It won't be President Trump actually arresting him. It'll be the freedom fighters that go in there to clean things up. Bikers, yay for the bikers for Trump heading to Seattle. Yeah, there's a load of them. Oh, and Antifa decided to challenge, like you can believe this, decided to challenge all the bikers, every last one of them. Didn't matter what group they belonged to. We want to battle you. And guess what? Bikers went, and there wasn't nobody home. Antifa didn't show up. Feel that there's not going to be an election. Well, no, it's going to be an election. These police in Atlanta just arrest the mayor and DA. It's a good they can. Why they haven't is because they're scared. Sunshine soldiers. I think that the virus uptick in Brazil is due to their climate. No, David, it's due to us spraying them with it. Remember chemtrails? They do it on a whole different basis down there. We are looking at a new age, and that new age is coming whether you like it or not, agree with it or not, and the dinks might be coming to your door. Get ready. Get prepared. I know prepping is supposedly now mainstream. Everybody can join in the fun. Well, learn how to grow a garden. Learn how to operate a handgun. Start being proactive within your own life, and basically go out there like everybody should and get her done.